I've always considered myself healthy. I grew up in a very health conscious family. I've been studying nutrition since I was 17. I competed in my first triathlon when I was also 17, and I've played sports my entire life. And throughout the last 15 years or so, I've tried a lot of different healthy habits. Some are really effective and others just don't really do anything, or even sadly reverse progress. And of course, there's some really obvious habits that we have talked about in the past, but today I wanted to share 10 of the more unique healthy habits that made really significant change for my body recomposition goals, and overall my wellness. Some of these I started early in my life, some I started later, and most of these I didn't start till pretty recently, and I wish I started a lot sooner. So let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Element. More on them in a bit. Okay, the first habit is half caff coffee. I love coffee. My issue is that once I have some, I want more and more. It's not even for energy purposes, I just love coffee so much. But then I get energy crashes, I get weird cravings, I get anxiety. It's just not good. Plus, too much caffeine can really hide other issues like really poor sleep quality. I also noticed when I was having too much caffeine, it was causing me to not eat enough during the day and then get ravenously hungry come dinner time and want to eat a lot of things that didn't support my goals, like a bunch of chocolate chips. So although I will still have some caffeinated coffee, I've lately been sticking to just half caff or even 1/3 caff. I use Purity Coffee. They have a 1/3 caffeinated option. It's mold free, it's organic, it's rich in antioxidants. I absolutely love it. I'll have it linked down in the description below if you want to check it out. But there is of course a bit of a transition period when you go from full caff to half caff. But now I really don't notice a difference, which means I can feel great on that lesser amount of caffeine, which is awesome. Okay, the second habit is eating for satiety, not for volume. I see this all the time, this idea of volume eating, and I was definitely all about it, especially in college when I ate a lot less animal-based foods. I was eating really big salads or really big like veggie sautés, just loading up on as much food as I possibly could from really good sources, but a lot of them. Now, because I was eating so much, it meant that my GI tract was always working. And it was also around this time when I started to get some severe gut health issues, like constantly bloated, my stomach would hurt regardless of what I ate. Also, because what I was eating didn't raise satiety hormones, even though I was eating a lot of food, I was constantly hungry, which meant again, I was constantly eating and therefore my gut was always working and never got a rest. So now instead, I do still eat high quality fiber rich foods, but I eat less of it and balance it out better with protein and fat, which do naturally raise satiety hormones and make me feel full and satisfied and provide the nutrients I need with a lot less food. And ironically, even though the volume of food is less, I don't feel as hungry, and therefore I get more of that natural gut rest between meals. Okay, the third thing I wish I started doing earlier, and I actually just recently started doing this, is taking creatine. Now, this is a very recent addition, and I probably wouldn't need to take it if I wasn't a vegetarian for about the first 18 years of my life. Creatine is going to be found in animal-based foods, specifically in meat, and it has so many health benefits ranging from brain and cognition and memory to, of course, to more of the more well-known athletic benefits. Even in older adults and the elderly, there's been studies on how it really improves memory and learning. And I've noticed a huge difference once I started taking creatine with my postpartum brain fog. I love it, which I did a full video on my experience. If you want to check it out, I'll have it linked right up here. But what I talked about in that video is once I increased my creatine, I also had to increase my electrolytes, which is why I love today's sponsor, Element. Element is an amazing electrolyte company that was specifically created with intermittent fasting, low carb eating, and athletes in mind. It actually contains the sodium, magnesium, and potassium to help replace lost electrolytes, all without having any sugar. I found that when I was taking creatine, I needed a lot more water and I was feeling more dehydrated. So as I started to drink more water, I also found that my electrolyte needs were going up too. So I currently take anywhere between 1 to 2 packets of Element per day, depending on how I'm feeling. And Element makes it really easy to do because it tastes so good. Their grapefruit salt is my absolute all-time favorite flavor, but they also have other amazing flavors like their orange, raspberry, and citrus. And right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single-serve packets free with any Element order. It's a really great way to test out all 8 flavors, so you can get yours at drinkelement.com/autumn. This is only available through my link, so make sure to check out drinklmnt.com/autumn. The link is also in the description down below. Okay, the fourth thing I really wish I started doing earlier was using a standing desk. And admittedly, I could be better at using it because I just recently started using it in the last couple months. And it was only because Trevor was finally like, you need to have this, that I ended up getting it. But with my type of job, and I know with a lot of other people out there too, there's a lot of sitting involved. And my back and my neck was hurting so much all the time from this, especially when I'd work out in the morning and then I would sit. It would cause my muscles to just sort of tighten up and make everything hurt. And even from sitting and kind of like crouching over like this when I'm typing, it would make my diaphragm tight, which would make my breathing a little bit more difficult. Overall, just no good. So now I've tried to switch it up by making sure that I alternate between sitting and standing, and of course still adding in as much walking as I can. But the standing desk has really helped to alleviate a lot of those tight muscles for me. Okay, number 5 is a high protein breakfast. Some of the things I used to eat back in the day, probably even about like 7 years ago, was coconut yogurt with a lot of dried fruit and maybe some nuts on top, or maybe some cereal or a fruit smoothie. I would also make these healthy muffins. I'd have French toast and pancakes. Now, a lot of those could mostly look healthy at first glance, but what they all have in common is that they are incredibly low in protein, which would of course make me hungry all the time and force me to snack and lead to a lot of the same GI issues. Not to mention, I would just get these crazy blood sugar crashes that would make me hangry and not very fun to be around. And breakfast really is the most important meal of the day because it does set you up for success or failure for the rest of the day. So I switched over to more protein-centric meals. Like you guys know, I love my protein pancakes and protein waffles, and I'll eat eggs or I'll have a smoothie. But the smoothie now is really rich in protein with my protein powder or with Greek yogurt, which means I have stable energy levels, I'm less hungry, and no more hanger, which is good for everybody. Okay, the 6th thing I wish I started doing a lot earlier is going to bed at 8:30. That might sound incredibly early for a lot of you, but for me, it really works. And that's because it does match our circadian rhythm, which really we should be trying to go to bed when it's dark out and waking up as soon as it's light out. Our hormones are optimized around that wake and sleep cycle, and it really is centered around whether or not it's dark or it's light out. And I found that ever since I switched to a much earlier bedtime, I feel my best. I feel so much less anxious the next day. I used to really struggle with anxiety, and by optimizing my sleep with this earlier sleep schedule, I feel so much better the next day. Okay, number 7 is eating meat and fish. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I used to eat a lot of veggies, pretty much mostly just veggies. And then I would also eat some chicken, but I didn't really eat meat or fish until fairly recently, like in the last 5, 6, 7 years. And even more recently, like in the last few months, I started to incorporate lamb as well. And beef and lamb and fish are all some of the most nutrient dense foods we could possibly eat, which means that they have some of the highest amounts of really important nutrients like zinc and iron, things that our body need in order to feel our best and thrive. Chicken is great, but it's not as nutrient dense versus with these other proteins from beef and lamb and fish. They not only provide high quality source of protein, but they're also so nutrient dense that I felt satisfied, but I also felt nourished. Okay, the 8th thing I wish I started doing earlier is exercising less but more efficiently. I used to work out daily. And when I mean workout, I don't mean being active, because I do still walk every single day, and that is really important. But I mean, I would do a workout every single day, or pretty much every single day. I loved the gym. I loved how working out made me feel, but I just wasn't really seeing the results that I thought I should be seeing. I was really, really skinny. I wasn't actually getting the muscle that I should. As I always say, I'm not looking to be Arnold, but I do want to feel strong. And I just simply wasn't seeing those results. So then ever since I had my daughter, Sage, I've kind of been forced to reschedule my workouts to more 2 to 3 day per week type of total body routine, which means I really focus on those core concepts like squats and deadlifts and presses on those days that I am working out. But then I get a couple of active rest days in between, which means my body is now able to recover from those workouts and see the benefits that those workouts are supposed to be providing. Since then, I've gained about 3 to 4 pounds of muscle, which for me is a huge accomplishment. It is very hard for me to gain muscle mass, and I have significantly increased my strength. I have never felt so strong and capable in my entire life, and that's ironically with going to the gym less. Okay, the 9th thing I wish I started doing way earlier is having my phone constantly on Do Not Disturb. So for those of you who don't know, you can put your phone on Do Not Disturb mode, and this means that you'll still receive notifications, like people can still call you, they can still text you. You just won't see those notifications until you actually check your phone. Like when I check my phone, it comes up as a blank screen. I have to physically open my phone to see when a text or a phone call has come through. And I started doing this when I learned that every time we receive a notification on our phone, it tends to cause a little spike in our stress hormone cortisol. Even if it's something positive positive. And if we're being quite honest, most notifications that pop up on our phone, we just don't need to be looking at right away. Most of it can wait. So I found that my stress levels really decreased, and I've been so much more productive and able to get so much more done in a shorter amount of time because I'm not as distracted. And my friends and family members know that if they really need me, they can call me twice to break through the do not disturb, and I'll still be able to get their call per usual. And the 10th habit I wish I started doing so much earlier is having an open mind, specifically around nutrition, fitness, and wellness. I think pretty much everybody in this space can really easily get stuck into one camp of thinking with nutrition, fitness, and wellness. And I was totally there for a while too, so I understand you have something that works for you and you think that that is the only thing that could possibly work for anybody else, but that is just not the case. I had the same experience, especially in college, where I would hear about some new types of strategies that seemed so out there that I would instantly disregard it as nonsense and not look any more into it, which is really a bummer because there are so many tools that fit so many different types of circumstances. And by being more open-minded about the possibility of these working for different types of issues, it could really help all of us immensely at different points in our wellness journeys. Like I remember even back in college in 2014, for my nutrition degree, we worked with the University of Arizona men's baseball team, and we were reviewing their various food journals. And there's one guy who was doing more of a like very, very low carb / almost carnivore style diet. That was the first time I had ever seen anything like that. And I personally didn't know how to feel about it because it was so counter what we were being taught in school. And yet he was raving about it, about how he no longer felt the aches and pains that he had before. He didn't know why it was working, but he just felt so much better. And at the time, I totally dismissed it. And yet now there's a lot more information about people with autoimmune conditions actually benefiting from something like the carnivore diet. But again, it does not mean that just because one thing works for one person, it works for everybody, which is why having an open mind and understanding how each of these tools can fit different types of circumstances is so important for all of us to feel our best. And I wish I would have known that a lot earlier. Now, if you want to see the healthy habits that specifically helped me to lose 20 pounds postpartum, you can check out this video next. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.